OODA, O-O-D-A, and it basically is observe, orient, decide, act, right? So in a situation erupts, observe, what's going on here? Orient, okay, now I know what's going on here, have a pretty good understanding. We need to make some decisions here and act. We need to act by getting a statement out. The worst thing anyone can do in really an interview situation or crisis situation is to actually use the phrase, no comment. I'm not going to talk about that. When there's silence in the time of a crisis, there's a void there, right? And someone is going to fill that void. And chances are in a crisis situation, if the company, the organization isn't filling that void, its critics are going to be filling the void. In terms of crisis planning, one thing that a good crisis plan will always have is you'll try to anticipate what the crises might be, and you will actually have draft, what we call holding statements, ready. I would say that what we want to do is make sure that organizations and individuals are represented fairly and accurately. So what you're trying to do is basically give them the tools to do just that. In a crisis situation, they're going to be interviewed, so they just need to know how to do it appropriately. And what we stress to them is you have to be able to be forthcoming, and fundamentally, you have to tell the truth. A lot of the mistakes that I see made are the same ones that we would see in a typical media training exercise. Failure to take control of an interview. In other words, so many people will treat an interview situation as a deposition, where they're like in a courtroom, just very high stress situation, responding yes, no. And what we always encourage people to do is to, again, give their perspective at the outset. Basically say, you know, I understand you're interested in talking to us about this situation. Let me bring you up to date on exactly what's happening and what we're doing to respond to this situation. That's probably the first mistake that people make. And the other thing I wanted to mention, this is a question that comes up quite a bit, is the role of social media and digital. You know, the idea of a news conference they're still held and they're still important ways to communicate, but that's changing a lot. It's no longer just the CEO or senior executive holding a news conference. It really is, how quickly are you going to be able to respond and engage with your followers on Twitter and in the social media. So one could argue that in a crisis situation, it's probably as important, or maybe sometimes even more important, to make sure that your company's viewpoint is represented out there very quickly on the company website, very quickly on social media. One of the reasons that we like to work with people and teach them these skills is, even if you're coming from a fairly low level of experience or knowledge, sharing these skills will help you anyway, because more often than not, I've worked with people who may not be superstars when you finish working with them, but they'll at least be better than they were when we first started off with them.